Island Passage Exploration is a private Canadian company undertaking mineral exploration in Bougainville Island, a region that the CEO says has not received serious systematic exploration in over 40 years. Island Passage has spent 2 years building a surface sample database on its 250 square kilometer EL02 license, just 9 kilometers from the legendary Panguna copper gold mine. Now with over 7.5 million raised, a high-profile technical team, and a large-scale porphyry copper-gold target taking shape at the Baratangaya, the company says it is on track to drill its first holes later this year. Donald McInnes is CEO. Donald is a resource entrepreneur. Past stints include executive founder and or director of Arizona Sonora Copper, Frontier Gold, Kucha Copper, Aurora Resources, True Gold Mining, and Plutonic Power. Donald, welcome to Mining Stock Daily.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, Donald, maybe you can explain what makes this asset so promising. What is a Panguna mine?
Well, to start with, Panguna was a copper gold porphyry mine that was built in 1972 on Bougainville Island. And at that time, Bougainville, which is part of Papua New Guinea, was a colony of Australia. And Panguna was in financing Panguna, it was the largest private sector financing in the history of the world at the time. It took 42 banks and a syndicate to raise the money to build the mine. And it was such a big mine and so valuable and contributed so much to GDP in Papua New Guinea that Australia said to Papua New Guinea, you can go forth and be a free country now, and we will still help you, but you can now have independence. So Panguna is very, very important for all of Papua New Guinea and especially for Bougainville. And when it was built, it put such stresses on the social fabric of Bougainville that there was an exploration moratorium put in place on the whole rest of the island, which is 10,000 square kilometers. So you've got the world's biggest copper gold mine, and porphyries occur in clusters, and nobody has undertaken exploration outside of the original Panguna license area. And if your listeners are aware or are technically oriented, porphyries occur in clusters. So in Highland Valley, there's over 6 different porphyry deposits, and this is true around the world in the porphyry belts. So we are very excited to be exploring on Bougainville, and we're the first company to really undertake large-scale exploration on the island of Bougainville since the Civil War ended in the late 1990s.
Now, Donald, I want to get to the mineral export program in a minute, but just given the best at Bougainville, I think it's very important to kind of talk about engaging the kind of community support that you have there. What is your plan for that community support? How are you measuring that you're actually successful and that you do have community support? Because, you want to de-risk this and make decisions step by step for deploying capital.
Yes. So what's extremely important to me in resource development, and has been through my career, is that we have to have a project of the people. And in our case in Bougainville, the actual tenement, EL exploration license number 2, it's not owned by Island Passage. We have a earn-in option from a customary landowner created company that's the actual tenement holder. And Bougainville, in fact, has its own legislation that provides for a 5% carry to the customary landowners should a mine be built. They have an opportunity to participate for 5%, and the government of Bougainville has the opportunity to participate for 20%. So there is a potential for 30% local participation, not 100% to the investor. And we're doing things on the ground to really work with the Bougainvillean customary landowners to make sure that this project is a project of the people. So for example, right now we're building a chicken farm on the island. And that may sound hokey, but there is no real large-scale chicken farming on the island of Bougainville. So we're working with a private foundation that specializes in these kinds of things. Panguna became controversial, and there was a civil war that started in 1989. The islanders felt that there was too much of the wealth leaving the island and going to the rest of Papua New Guinea. and little wealth staying there. They ended up having a 9-year civil war and 20,000 people died. So you've got a lost generation of Bougainvilleans who lost the ability to get good education. They lost the ability for real jobs because during the Civil War, the island was completely cut off from the rest of the world. So we are undertaking significant training programs to help educate the locals on how exploration is done. We have an ongoing robust support system for schools. The elders want more education and better education for their youth, which they're convinced will lead to opportunities in the future. And we are doing things to help our customary landowner company, which is called Asina Resource Holdings. We're doing things to help them not just become a tenement holder, but to assist them in becoming a service provider for our needs and others. So that could be in logistics. Right now, we're in the process of lending them enough money to buy their first truck so they can start getting into the transportation business, as an example. We are trying to hire locally as much as possible. We employed 3 Bougainvillean students who are attending the University of Papua New Guinea's geology school. And we've hired one of those youngsters full-time now who's got a job on the island working for us, which is fantastic to me because we need to do more and more. And through our version of success, if we build a mine, and like at Red Dog, which I think is an amazing example in Alaska, there's all but 6 people that work at Red Dog who are Unapiat citizens from the various Unapiat communities around the Red Dog mine. And because that's been operating for close to 30, 40 years, they've had more than a generation of time to train their youth in not just labor jobs, but engineering jobs, finance jobs, human relations jobs, environmental management programs, etc. So I view our opportunity on the island, whether it's a restart for Panguna, or if we find a mine at ELO2 or elsewhere on the island, these are platforms for socioeconomic success for the Bougainvilleans. It's not an opportunity just for an investor to make money. So we're looking for the greatest amount of local content as possible, Michael.
I noticed your chicken farm on the last slide on your deck, and I was going to ask, but you did address it there, Donald. Just sticking with the community one more time. Just talk about infrastructure, roads, water, electricity.
So the island, because it was cut off, infrastructure in the island deteriorated during the Civil War and post because they reverted to an agrarian economy. And we need to bring in a lot of everything. The Australian government is funding the building of a $20 million Australian solar project right now. But most electricity on the island is very small scale, like mini scale hydroelectric or diesel generators. So having good infrastructure is a challenge. The government of Australia is upgrading the airport at Arawa, which is the town that Bechtel built to support Panguna. So that airport should be able to host daily jet traffic from wherever. The main airport on the island is called Buka, and there's daily jet service to there. But it takes 4 hours to drive on the only road running north-south in the island because it's, for the most part, a dirt road that's very, very difficult to drive on. So it's 130 kilometers and it takes 4 hours to drive. So, everything is hamstrung by a lack of infrastructure on the island. For example, there's not a commercial fishery on the island because there's not enough electricity to make ice and provide ice to fishing boats and things like that, Michael.
Let's talk geology. Your December 2025 release describes 47 meters at 0.56% copper and 0.49 grams per ton gold at Baratanga. Talk about now. This was just sampling at surface rather. How confident are you about those widths being representative of system below?
We are have gone to first principles or basic exploration, starting with silt sampling, moving into soil sampling, always sampling rocks where we can find it. And we've got hundreds and hundreds of rock samples and thousands of soil samples. And we're pretty confident that there's an amazingly robust mineralizing system present on the island. And we've got lots of evidence of mineralizing events having occurred within the boundaries of ELO2. The Baratanka Trench chip sample that you're referring to is very representative of that. And to give your audience an idea, Panguna at the time of shutdown still had a resource. Even after operating for 17 years, it still had a 1.7 billion ton resource grading 0.3% copper with 0.34 grams gold. We've had individual rock samples running up to 14% copper and 454 grams gold. Now, those are isolated. What we're looking for is a big system. And in that 47-meter chip sample, it's very homogeneous. That represents not one 47-meter sample. That represents 47 1-meter samples. And the variability of the copper and gold contained in that is not noticeable at all. So it's very homogeneous. We also have evidence of molybdenum on the project. We're getting up to 0.5% moly in some of our rock samples. And the Baratanka area, we think, shows like a porphyry. We've got a significant trenching program going on now, which will be a prelude to drilling, hopefully in July, August. But there's just mineralization everywhere. And then a lot of people are very aware of K92 and their mine on the mainland of Papua New Guinea. That's a series of polymetallic veins. So not only do we have a porphyry target at Baratanka, and by the way, the Baratanka soil anomaly is 4 kilometers by 1.5 K. So our task and our opportunity is to find areas within that very large footprint that we want to focus on. But like K92, we also have at least 5 veins identified that stretch over 4 linear kilometers that are polymetallic. So that means we've got silver, lead, zinc, gold, and there's just some fantastic numbers there as well. So our job is to just systematically keep trying to find and identify specific drill targets within this very large mineralizing system that seems to be omnipresent throughout the 250 square kilometer project.
You mentioned within that same December 2025, some targets having an epithermal affiliation, whereas you're looking at a signature for a porphyry model. How do those reconcile?
So when a porphyry is created or when the mineralizing fluids create a porphyry, you get leakage of fluids into veins, which are called epithermal. So quite often you will find an epithermal gold deposit adjacent to a porphyry system. Now, sometimes through tectonic movement over hundreds of millions of years, the porphyry and the epithermal system can be tens of kilometers apart, but nonetheless, they are related geologically. So in Panama, for example, you've got the Cobre Panama copper deposit owned by First Quantum, and adjacent to that is the Molajón epithermal gold deposit owned by Petaquilla Minerals, I think. So we're not just looking for one thing here. We are looking for anything we can find, and we have evidence of at least 2 or 3 styles of mineralization at this point.
What's your plan for deploying a rig, Donald?
We are literally sending 2 drill contractors today, June 17th, an invitation to bid on a drilling program that we hope they can mobilize equipment and begin by August. And what's fantastic about PNG and Bougainville is that you can drill your first 2,500 meters without a permit. Now, having said that, that's if you have good local support. In our case, we have great local support because the locals are our underlying landlord and the tenement holder. So our interests are quite aligned with the locals to get going as soon as possible. And we've spent a lot of time We have 8 full-time community liaison officers who are talking to the communities, going into the schools, and quite often they'll have a series of slides or images in cartoon form that show the steps of exploration, starting with a silt sample to a rock sample to a trench to eventual drilling. So we're doing a lot to educate the locals on the process and where we hope to get to in August with a small drilling program, our first program.
What did you choose as a target, or have you chosen a target yet for that 2,500? And then also to add on, how long do you think permitting would take until you can add on to that additional 2,500?
We're going to initiate permitting for meters beyond the 2,500 with the view that we will want to keep on going and that we will have technical success. Our first drill program, though, will be smaller. We're not drilling kilometer deep holes. We will probably drill somewhere between 10 and 25 holes that'll be 100 to 150, 200 meters in depth. And that's because there is so much overburden on the island, such fabulously rich soil that has great agricultural values, but it hampers our ability to see a lot of fresh rock. And that's especially true in a tropical environment where that rock is just eroding in the tropical environments. So we need to figure out where in that 4 by kilometer and a half soil anomaly we want to focus our efforts. So this is kind of like prospecting with a drill before we get going on a large campaign.
Given the state of resources, like it is a country that's kind of reconstructing itself, do you have a general feel, though, in terms of like what you think permitting and licensing are going to be? Is it going to be a long, drawn-out process? Do they have the capacity?
The bureaucracy in Bougainville have not administered a mining industry for 50 years. So the bureaucracy needs to learn, and we intend on and have been working with the bureaucracy to bring in modern regulations and timelines and to give them experiences. They are very, very excited about the prospect of becoming an independent country themselves. They want to break away from Papua New Guinea, and they view that their future of freedom is completely tied to economic independence, which is only going to come at this point from mining. So we are not the only game in town. The Bougainville Copper Limited, which owns the Panguna exploration license number 1, that is being advanced very quickly by the Bougainvillean government, which owns 72% of that company, to get back into a modern drilling campaign to see how quickly Panguna can be restarted. So there's a lot of momentum on the island for this. And as I said, we want to be a project of the people. And if we have an alignment of interests, I think we can do things quite quickly.
What, in terms of alignment of interests, specifically for the operators of, what was once the Panguna mine, how are you looking at in terms of them advancing, and then how might that advantage what you're doing at your own project? You do notice at the top, I think, your close proximity to that past mine.
Yes, our property boundary is only 9 kilometers from the pit as the crow flies. So we literally are neighbors. And we talk to the people at Bougainville Copper Limited frequently. Their offices, coincidentally, are in the same building as ours. So they are undertaking a drilling campaign now and looking at how fast can they do a feasibility study and work on permitting. But again, I think this is all about that alignment of interests. And because the customary landowners will own at least 5% of the project, and the ABG, Autonomous Bougainvillean Government, has an opportunity for 20% participation, I see a tremendous alignment of opportunity here, subject only to how quickly can we discover what we hope will be a world-class mine.
When do you think Island Passage, your company, might go public, Donald?
We're not in a rush. We've been able to raise the risk capital since we started in 2024 to stay ahead of our spend. We did attract, Rob McInnes participated in a financing in September of 24 for $1 million. He bought about 15% of the company. And then in June of 25, we sold a major 16% of the company. The world knows that the geological endowment on Bougainville is unparalleled. And this is the same kind of moment in time when Adolf Landin went to Argentina when nobody would touch the country. And look at what he did with International Musto. And it's the same as when Robert Friedland went to Mongolia. Everybody thought he was out of his mind. And he ended up finding Oyu Tolgoi. And it was not easy raising our money for our first exploration year. And it had nothing to do with geological risk. It had only to do with jurisdictional risk. And so we've now been successfully, quietly, peacefully operating on this island for 2 years in great harmony with the locals. And I think we've proven that Bougainville is open for business. The presence of Bougainville Copper Limited at Panguna, again, helps prove the point. And we are the first people to explore outside of Panguna since 1972. So that's over 50 years of no exploration in probably the most exciting geological province on the planet that's been locked up and not accessible. So world-class opportunities like this don't come across very often. And we are just so excited to be working with the locals to explore outside of the Panguna footprint for what we think will be a world-class opportunity.
Donald McInnes, thanks for speaking with Mining Stock Daily.
Thank you. That was wonderful, Michael, to be able to share our story.
The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decisions.